Matt Rhule, aka Rule the Fool. Once again, his team loses another one-score game as Nebraska has now fallen to a 5-6 record. This is Sports Guy talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Matt Rhule struggling at Nebraska. Even though Nebraska is 5-6 on the season, they have lost 4 one-score games while also being winless when allowing 17 points or more this season. Nebraska has also dealt with quarterback instability this season, as it has been a big reason for their struggles in close games. Before I say anything else though, I want to present you guys with a topic question. So here it is. What grade would you give Matt Rhule in his first year at Nebraska? I'm going to feel generous to Matt Rhule today. I don't feel like ripping him completely. And I say that sarcastically because I'm going to go ahead and give him a D+. And the only reason why I'm not making that grade lower for Matt Rhule is because his team did win 5 games. And I did expect Matt Rhule to go 5-7 before the season started. However, I can't give him a grade higher than a D+ because this man has still been pathetic in close games. Yes, I understand that this is his first year at Nebraska, but I watched this man coach the Carolina Panthers for 3 years, and I saw this man lose every single game when he allowed 17 points or more. Anytime the Panthers played a close game, they always lost, and Matt Rhule seems to be repeating the same mistake at Nebraska. You look at their games that they've been playing this year. They lost 13-10 against Minnesota on opening night. They got blown out to Colorado 36-14. They ended up getting blown out to Michigan. Okay, I'll give them a pass for getting blown out to Michigan. You know, Michigan, they're a really good football team. In Nebraska, they're just not quite there yet. So I'll give him a pass for getting blown out to Michigan, but the other losses, I'm not giving him a pass for. And then he ends up losing to Michigan State. They're on the interim coach. Michigan State right now is a dumpster fire. For Matt Rhule to lose that game, that was unacceptable. And then he loses a close game to Maryland at home. The way that they lose that game, absolutely pathetic. And then they ended up losing to Wisconsin on Saturday in overtime defeat, where it was Wisconsin winning by the score of 24-17. Honestly, when you look at all of these losses that Matt Rhule had for Nebraska, it has been unacceptable, with the exception of getting beat down by Michigan. You want to talk about week 1 against Minnesota? Holy cow. You want to talk about a team that wanted to give away a football game? Look up Nebraska versus Minnesota, because Minnesota was playing really bad in that game, and Nebraska turned over the ball 4 times in that game. Their quarterback was a turnover machine, and not only that, they tried to run out the clock when they were up 10-3 in the 4th quarter, and their running back Anthony Grant fumbles the football, which made Minnesota end up recovering the football, and then they drive down the field. They scored a touchdown at 10-10, and then they have a 2-minute drill that they have to go ahead and do. And what happens? Jeff Sims turns over the football, and he ends up costing the team that game, and Minnesota ends up kicking the field goal to win the game 13-10. And then they end up getting blown out to Colorado, and you might be thinking, oh, what's the big deal that they got blown out to Colorado? Well, Colorado doesn't look like a good football team right now. Right now, Colorado is 4-7 on the season. They're not even going to get to a bowl game. They look like a team that was entirely overhyped by the national media, but they weren't overhyped on the day they were going up against Nebraska. They actually blew out Nebraska. Do you know how bad you have to be to get blown out by Colorado? I mean, holy cow. Matt Rhule was getting outcoached by Deion Sanders badly in that game. It's one thing to lose to Colorado, yes, but to get blown out by them 36-14, and the game was actually a lot worse than that before Nebraska padded up a touchdown late in the game. That was unacceptable. That tells me that their head coach is unprepared. Matt Rhule has been getting outcoached a lot all season long. So when you look at that second loss, you're thinking, how did he get blown out to Deion Sanders like that? Holy cow, he just got himself undressed and embarrassed. That's why I call him Rhule the Fool, because Rhule the Fool was clearly unprepared for Deion Sanders in Colorado to just completely dominate them. Shedeur Sanders dominated them from start to finish. He played a phenomenal game, and Nebraska simply had no answers for him whatsoever. They made Colorado look like Ohio State out there. When you make Colorado look like Ohio State, you got problems. But then you want to talk about the other losses that Nebraska had. Okay, they get smacked down to Michigan. I can understand that, even though you really shouldn't get smashed, but I'll go ahead and give them a pass for that one. And then they end up losing to Michigan State. Now, Michigan State is on an interim coach. They are a dumpster fire of a program right now. They are a disastrous football team right now, but even Michigan State found a way to beat Nebraska, and they won that game because their quarterback play was a liability and their offense was a no-show. And Michigan State realized that, hey, I just got to put up 17 points basically, and I'm going to go ahead and win the game. For the record, they ended up scoring 20 points, which when you play against Matt Rhule, that's always going to be enough to win, because when you score 20 points against Matt Rhule, oh yeah, his team is going full like a lawn chair. And then after that, they play against Maryland at home. He plays 3 different quarterbacks in that game because one of their quarterbacks, the starter for that game, he ends up getting hurt. And then Jeff Sims comes in, the initial star for the year. He ends up turning over the football too much, and Matt Rhule realizes that, hey, this dude is a liability. We can't keep him on the field any longer. Let's go ahead and play Chubba Purdy, who, for some odd reason, Nebraska refused to play much earlier in the season. I said before the year that Chubba Purdy was the best quarterback on the roster. Well, guess what? Right now, he seems to be playing pretty good for Nebraska. It seems like Matt Rhule had no clue how to evaluate talent in the quarterback room whatsoever. But anyways, Chubba Purdy, he comes in, he drives his team down the field, and then he throws a backbone-crushing interception late in that game when Maryland was only down to 1 timeout in a tie ball game. Maryland then drains out the rest of the clock, and then they end up kicking the game-winning field goal as time expires, as his defense just gets shredded late in the game. So that's another bad loss for Nebraska right there. And then you look at who Nebraska just played against on Saturday night, which was Wisconsin. They were up 14-0 in that game, and they were giving away points like it was nothing because Nebraska bypassed the field goal late in that first quarter. They could have kicked the field goal, could have gone up 17-0, but they decided to go for it on 4th and 1. They fail, and then Wisconsin on top of that ends up scoring a touchdown to start off that drive, which was really the turning point of the game. You kick that field goal, you go up 17-0. Wisconsin is probably not going to come back on you. Instead, you fail on 4th down, and Wisconsin, they end up getting a touchdown off of that drive. Now it's a 14-7 ball game. Now the game's within reach. And also, here's the thing with Nebraska as well. They also missed the field goal to end the first half as well, and it was from 42 yards out. It's a kick that kickers got to make. You can't miss that field goal in that situation because if you make that field goal now 17-10 heading into the half, that's a heck of a lot better lead to have than being only up 14-10. And I remember the interviewer asked Matt Rhule at halftime, how do you feel about this game? And Matt Rhule was like, yeah, we're doing pretty good. We actually got a lead for once. We just got to hold on. And I'm thinking to myself, does this dude even realize that when you play the game of football, you're supposed to try to get a lead at all times? This dude is like, yeah, we got a lead for once. Yeah, we're just going to hold on. What kind of coach thinks like that? But hey, I'm not surprised that Matt Rhule is thinking like this because I saw him talk like this on the Carolina Panthers. This is the same man that talked about giving the Carolina Panthers 7 years to build a team while quoting Jay-Z quotes when he was getting grilled by the media for why he was losing all those games on the Carolina Panthers. And then here's the thing with Nebraska. They were down by 3 late in the 4th quarter. They're driving down the field. They got all 3 timeouts. They're inside the Wisconsin 20. And instead of going for the win, Matt Rhule decides to play it conservative and head into overtime instead of trying to play to win the game. When you have a coach that doesn't play to win the game and tries to play not to lose, you end up losing the game. And that's exactly what happened in Nebraska because in overtime, Wisconsin just wore them down by running the football. And then when Nebraska got the ball back in overtime, they couldn't do anything with it. They actually end up losing yards in overtime. Chubba Purdy, he ends up throwing the interception. That's how Nebraska ended up losing to Wisconsin. And like I said before the year, I predicted that Nebraska would go 5-7 before the season started. Well, right now they're 5-6 and they got 1 game left to go. They get to go up against Iowa. That's going to be one of their tougher opponents that they'll be going up against this year. I expect Iowa to go ahead and beat them. Even though the game is at Nebraska, I expect Iowa to take care of business and beat Nebraska, which is what they're supposed to go ahead and do. That means Matt Rhule is going to be 5-7, and he has proven to be a massive overpay for Nebraska. Right now, Matt Rhule is a top 7 coach in terms of salaries paid. Only Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Dabble Sweeney, Lincoln Riley, Brian Kelly, and Ryan Day are getting paid more money than Matt Rhule when you talk about money per year. When you look at the contract that Matt Rhule has in Nebraska, holy cow, that is a huge contract for a guy that is not that good of a coach whatsoever. 8 years, $74 million. What are you doing, Nebraska? That reeks of a program that is just desperate to even reach mediocrity. Matt Rhule, he might not even be a mediocre coach in college football. I know they turned around Baylor and Temple, but those are 2 entirely different programs. This is Nebraska we're talking about here. This was a former blue blood school in the Big Ten, and Matt Rhule is underachieving. I know it's only year 1, but do we really think it's going to get better from here on out? This guy has no plan at the quarterback position. This guy hires bad coordinators, and honestly, when you look at Matt Rhule's tenure in Nebraska so far, it looks eerie similar to how his first year on the Carolina Panthers went. I remember the Panthers the first year, they started out 5-11, but they lost 8 one-score games while having a pretty bad coordinator that didn't get along with the head coach. Well, it seems like that's happening in Nebraska right now because Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator for Nebraska, has done a crappy job for them this year, while Matt Rhule just keeps switching quarterbacks each and every game. Look, you can't develop any chemistry whatsoever. When you got a quarterback room of Jeff Sims, Heinrich Haarberg, and Chubba Purdy, you're not going to win a lot of games, plain and simple. And then even when you look at the 5 wins that Nebraska has had, are they even really impressive? Congrats, Matt Rhule. You beat Northern Illinois. I could have done the same thing. You beat Louisiana Tech. I could have done the same thing. You beat Illinois, you beat Northwestern, and you beat Purdue. Those opponents that I just listed right there, they're all pretty bad teams. I know that Northwestern, they're going to go to a bowl game, but trust me, they're not bowl worthy when you look at their tape. They're not as good as what the record may indicate what they are. Matt Rhule didn't beat any good teams whatsoever this year. All the games that he won this year, he was supposed to win. It's plain and simple, which is why I'm giving Matt Rhule a D+. I don't see how you could give him a different grade other than that, unless you want to go lower and give him a D or an F or whatever you want to give him. But I can't give him a grade higher than a D+. He has been a failure at Nebraska so far, so that's why I would give Matt Rhule a D+ for his coaching performance at Nebraska in his first year. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the @Dustin Tran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @Dustin Tran and that Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below, check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.